Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. I am finally doing my wrap up for last month. I'm always late with these wrap ups, but here's everything that I read back in October. I got to 25 books last month, and I will say quite a few of them are novellas because I've been making my way through the Audible Plus catalog, and the 3-month free trial that they gave me finally ended. So an Audible Plus video is coming up next. Anyway, let's get into it. Here are the 25 romances that I read in October. First up is an Audible Plus freebie. This is A Vineyard Valentine by Nina Bocci. This audio novella is set at the heroine's winery, which I thought was really cool. She hosts this Valentine's Day singles soiree every year at her vineyard, but she doesn't actually like this holiday that much because she doesn't believe in love. So this year she decides to host an anti-Valentine's Day party that same night as a soiree. It turns out that an anti-Valentine's Day party is not that successful and that people do really believe in love, and she herself meets someone at the real Valentine's Day party. I gave this one 3 stars. I can't say that it was all that amazing or anything. It's a quick novella, so the romance is like the bare bones of it, but the whole vineyard and winery part was really fun. It is a quick read, and it would be good if you're looking for a Valentine's Day themed short story. And then I listened to Think Outside the Box by Olivia Hale, which was another Audible Plus freebie. It was my first time reading this author, and honestly, it was not the best. I gave it 2 stars. I didn't really get into the characters. The romance was okay. It's a very run-of-the-mill office romance. It did have a fairly interesting setup. I liked the beginning. I was intrigued, but it eventually just turned into a very bland story. So the heroine, Freddie, gets accidentally mailed a letter that was meant for someone else, and that letter is an exclusive invite to a sex club, and since her life is so boring, she decides to go. She meets the hero at this club, and this hero really made the story go downhill for me. Tristan is a quiet type of hero, and normally I don't not like this, but he was quiet in a way where he just wasn't really doing much for the romance. It honestly seemed like he didn't like the heroine all that much. So they make this supposed great connection at the sex club that night, even though I never really felt it. But they never expect to see each other again until, of course, Freddie shows up for her new internship, and Tristan is none other than her CEO. So that starts the whole office romance thing, but by then I was kind of checked out. I didn't buy the romance between them, and it was just not that memorable. I then read The Broken Vows by Catharina Maura. I love Catharina Maura, but surprisingly, I haven't read any of her Windsor's books until now, and this one being the new release is the latest one in the series, so I started reading the series completely out of order, but at least it didn't really affect my reading experience with it. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. This is Celeste and Zane's second chance romance. These two were childhood rivals back in the day. Zane was the type of boy who would pick on Celeste because he wanted her attention. The Broken Vows is split into 2 parts. The first part is where they're kids, it's their childhood, and you get to see them falling in love for the first time. And then the second part takes place in present day, where they are very fierce enemies. The first part was actually so sweet. You get that cozy feeling of falling in love for the first time along with Zane and Celeste, but you're also kind of dreading it because you know something terrible happens that causes them to fall apart. It does, of course, go badly. We see the fallout of their breakup, we see all the hurt and the anger and all of their hatred in part 2. What really made this book for me though was how even through all of Zane's hate, you could really feel how he still loves Celeste and will always love her. She is the one for him no matter what comes between them. What took me by surprise was how Celeste had some of her own groveling to do. I didn't mind it though, because Celeste did mess up big time. She definitely had a lot more making up to do than Zane. So this one was an angsty second chance romance with so many emotions. I definitely want to go back and start the series from the beginning now, because we do see a lot of the previous couples featuring heavily in this book, and I am very interested in them all. Before I get into the rest of this wrap up, I wanted to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Ana Luisa. Ana Luisa is a jewelry brand and they have an amazing collection. All of their pieces are of top quality. They are tarnish resistant, they're long lasting, and each piece comes with a 2-year warranty. I'm in love with my current Ana Luisa collection and I did get 3 new pieces from them. I'm wearing 2 of them right now, a pair of earrings and this gorgeous dainty necklace. The earrings that I have on right now, they're called Paris. They're these small hoops but with a little twist to them. And the necklace that I'm wearing is called Lori. It's this thin chain necklace with 2 interlocking hoops in the middle with these gorgeous rhinestones, so anywhere you turn it's so shiny. And then the other necklace that I got is called Ina. It's a herringbone chain necklace in gold. It is thicker than the Lori, but it looks so nice together, or they would work individually as well. Each piece comes in its own little pouch, and if it's a bigger piece, then it has a bigger pouch. Right now, Ana Luisa has a holiday sale going on. You can grab the perfect jewelry gifts for up to 35% off. I'll leave a link in my description for you to check it out. Honestly, any piece from Ana Luisa would make the perfect holiday gift. I just love wearing their jewelry. They are so versatile. Like, you could wear them for a night out, something fancy, or something more casual. They really would fit for any occasion. They're all so pretty. Ana Luisa is such a staple to my wardrobe. Like, I love pairing jewelry with my clothes, and Ana Luisa makes it so easy because I love their style. Here's another pair of earrings that I got recently that I am so obsessed with. I also own this ring of theirs called Jax. It's this crossover ring and I've had it for over a year now and it's still in such amazing condition. A big thank you to Ana Luisa for sponsoring today's video. I'm always super excited to partner with them on my channel. Also, don't forget about the Ana Luisa sale. You can get up to 35% off their jewelry. And then I read Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. It's a debut fantasy romance and I had such high hopes for it. Like, it sounded cute and quirky. I mean, it's about a girl who finds a job as an assistant to the villain hero. The writing here was definitely a little bit quirky, which wasn't my favorite thing to read. It tried to be a lot funnier than I was, and the whole fantasy part wasn't really there. It's supposed to be high fantasy, I guess, with, you know, different kingdoms, but the world building, there wasn't much of it. Like, we never really learned that much about the outside world here. And then romance-wise, Evie and the villain were okay. I couldn't really connect with the characters that much, so it made it hard for me to get invested in the romance. Though I will say, if you like a pining hero, this villain does pine a lot. I just wasn't feeling it as much as I wanted to, but for a debut, it's not bad. Like, I'm giving it 3 stars. It was okay, but there definitely could have been some improvements. Maybe if you're in the mood for some cozy fantasy romance, this might be for you. Just don't go into it expecting like an epic fantasy. My next book in this wrap up is one of my favorite reads of last month. It's Lotus by Jennifer Hartmann. I gave it 4.5 stars. I loved it, and I definitely loved it more than Still Beating. Granted, that's because I didn't love that one as much as everyone else did, but still, Lotus took me by surprise by how much I adored it. So this is a spin-off of Still Beating. It's like set in the same world. It's about another character who also got kidnapped, but this time it's the hero who was taken as a child. Oliver was kidnapped and raised by a strange old man to believe that the world was ending, and that's why he could never go outside. Oliver does manage to escape eventually, but decades later. So the world is 20+ years older for him and just completely different for him now. Like, just thinking about how things changed from the 2000s to present day, the 2020s, there were some massive shifts in our world. So I can only imagine what Oliver was going through. So now that Oliver is free, the only thing he can really rely on is his childhood best friend Sydney, who is the heroine. She and her family were the ones who never forgot about him because he was their best friend. So Sydney and Oliver have to rebuild their friendship, which is slow and painful, but I loved the connection between them. Like, Sydney was the only thing that kept Oliver going, even when he didn't realize it while he was kidnapped. This book and the romance had my heart aching. Like, I was feeling so bad for Oliver and what he was going through and what he was still going through even though he was free. So there's just a ton of emotions going on here, but I thought the story was so beautiful. The romance was amazing. I was kind of blown away by this, but the only reason why I'm giving this 4.5 stars is that I did feel like things were a bit too unbelievable. Like Oliver adjusted to present day as an adult a bit too easily. Like, yes, I get it. It probably wouldn't have worked for the romance if Oliver still had the mindset of like a 10-year-old or whatever age he was when he was kidnapped. But that's really my only issue with this. Like, it's not quite believable, but I loved the fiction of it. And then I read a small town cowboy romance from L. Thorpe. This is Talk Dirty Cowboy. This was great. I gave it 4 stars. Before this, I had only ever read L. Thorpe's reverse harem series, like her darker romantic suspense stuff. So I was excited when I saw this at my library because I really wanted to try one of her cowboy romances. So Talk Dirty Cowboy is a single parent romance. Both the main characters are single parents. It's set in a small Australian town and the hero is a bull rider who unfortunately lost his wife while he was out on tour. Paisley and Bowen start their romance through their kids. It's a pretty cute setup, like both of their sons are gaming buddies, and the one time the kids are away from their games but their webcams and their audio is still on. Bowen hears Paisley singing very loudly in her home and he decides to talk to her. So they start up this friendship kind of virtually until they realize that they live pretty close to each other. The romance is fairly sweet, pretty easygoing. There is some drama with Paisley's sucky ex and her also not wanting to be a part of Bowen's limelight as a bull rider. But other than that, it's a very easy and simple read, like very enjoyable. Bowen is such a good hero to Paisley and her son. Both the sons are great. So if you love cowboys and small towns, which are a big thing right now, then you'll probably enjoy this one too. And then I read the very last Jessa Kane novella that she published. You guys, you have no idea how devastated I am that Jessa Kane isn't releasing books anymore because of piracy. My Stalker, My Protector is her final book and it's got all the Jessa Kane goodness that you would expect in it. This was a 4-star read for me. I had a lot of fun with it. I love her Stalker series because of how deranged her heroes are. This one is a brother's best friend romance set in college, and yes, the hero is obsessed with his best friend's sister. He's also been stalking her and scaring her anonymously, so when her brother goes out of town, she needs to stay with the hero for protection, not knowing that he's the exact guy that she needs protection from. Jessa Kane really ended on a bang with this one. I do have plans to make a more fully dedicated video about Jessa Kane because that's what she deserves. So keep an eye out for that. And then I read Enchanted to Meet You by Meg Cabot. This is a cozy mystery rom-com from one of my favorite authors growing up and it was actually adorable. I'll admit, as much as I love her older stuff, her newer stuff has not been hitting. So it kind of took me by surprise by how much I enjoyed Enchanted to Meet You. It's a witchy rom-com about a plus-sized witch who was banned from the World Council of Witches after a spell gone wrong. 15 years after her ban, a member of that council shows up. His name is Derek and he is the hero. He shows up in her small town to tell her that she is apparently the chosen one and she's meant to save her small town and she has to work alongside her childhood bully to do so. This was kind of the perfect book for me to read during the Halloween season. Like, it definitely delivered on the cozy paranormal vibes. The romance is light and fluffy. The hero is a bit of a grump. It is pretty low in steam, unfortunately, but that's just the way that Meg Cabot works. I'm giving this 4 stars. Even though the romance wasn't like perfect, it definitely could have been a bit stronger. I still had an entertaining time reading it, and even though spooky season is over, I feel like it would still fit perfectly if you're in the mood for a fall read. My next read was Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner. This is a sapphic sports romance and it was pretty fun. I'm giving it like 3.5 to 4 stars. I personally was super excited to read it because the blurb mentioned that it had some Ted Lasso vibes and I love that show. Did it deliver on Ted Lasso? kind of. Like, it has that sort of cute soccer team thing going on. So this is a rivals to lovers romance between soccer teammates on the US women's national team. One of the heroines is a veteran and the captain, and the other heroine is a newbie who just joins the team. Grace and Phoebe start off as rivals after Grace gets an injury, and Phoebe, who is the newbie, takes her spot. Obviously, Grace is not happy about the situation. She's not happy about being benched, but Phoebe is so excited because she has had the biggest crush on Grace for the longest time. Like, she's a huge fan of hers, but when they start being in some closer proximity, they realize how attracted to each other they are, and even though they're supposed to be rivals, they do start up this secret friends with benefits thing. There's a fantastic amount of forced proximity if you love that trope because of how these two are teammates, and the whole working together so closely thing makes it really hard for them to resist each other. The steam was great. There was a lot more of it than I expected from such a cutesy little cover, but I'm not gonna complain about that. The only thing was that there was always a lot of miscommunication that would drag out the story. Also, Meryl Wilsner does go pretty heavy on the soccer talk here, which could be a good or bad thing depending on the reader. But if you're looking for a soccer romance to try, you can't go wrong with this one. The story does have its more slower, repetitive parts, but it's still a fun and hot sports romance. And then another one of my favorite reads of October was My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. You guys, I love this book so much. I give it 5 stars. I don't even know why I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I guess I saw all the mixed reviews for it, so I didn't expect too much out of it, but it was so perfect, cute and fun and adorable. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the hot alpha vampires, but this book made me realize that I love the cute, sweet, and quirky ones too. So this is about a human heroine who finds an absolute steal of a room in Chicago. Since it's so cheap, Cassie thinks that it really is too good to be true, but she doesn't really have any other option, so she goes for it. She meets up with Frederick, her hero, but he keeps some odd hours, so she can only meet up with him at night to check out the apartment. Other than the odd hours, he seems like a nice guy, so these two do become roomies. And then, of course, it turns out that Frederick is a whole ass vampire, but he's a nice one, okay? He's a couple hundred years old, but he was in his coma for a long while, so he's not up with the times at all. He is a very old school vampire. He's a little formal and polite. He and Cassie are just so adorable together, and I love the fact that each vampire in this world has their own sort of magic power, and Frederick's is the most random thing. He has the ability to conjure fruits. Like, how cute is that? So this was just a lovely, feel-good paranormal romance that I was in the perfect mood for. I can understand why people wouldn't like it, but it just worked so well for me. I did read a couple more paranormal romances, some monster romances for the spooky season. So my next read is Moon-Blooded Breeding Clinic by C.M. Nescosta. This is part of her Canebrake Creek series, which I've been excited to continue with because I love book 1 so much. Book 2 was okay, but I was really hoping that I would love book 3. Unfortunately, this was a completely different monster romance than I was expecting. I give it 2 stars. First off, the author puts COVID in here. Like, the pandemic is the reason why the werewolf hero is forced to go back home. Like, he can't continue with his traveling photography career, and Lowell is a full-out brat of a hero. I'm not gonna lie, I've never been more turned off by a hero, and I just did not like his character. I didn't like how immature he was, and I didn't like how he came across as selfish. And the main characters took way too long to actually meet. Like, I was waiting for the romance to start, and it doesn't happen until like a third of the way through. The heroine, Mariah, is recently divorced, and the only thing she really wants is a child. So she goes to Moon-Blooded Breeding Clinic to find a werewolf to breed her, and she just happens to choose Lowell in their catalog. So they start off as a contractual thing until feelings get involved, but the steam here was kind of cringy to read. It turns out that as much as I love reading the term good girl in a book, the term good boy does not work the same. It just doesn't have the same effect. In fact, it has a total opposite effect. So yeah, I'm just really sad that I didn't love this one. And then my next read, Oh my goodness. I read Manacled by Senlinyu and it blew my mind. I don't even have the words to describe this read. I mean, I loved it. I give it 5 stars. I'm honestly still kind of in a book hangover after reading this, even though I read it a month ago. It's a kind of writing and storytelling that never leaves you, that you just can't forget. If you don't know what Manacled is, it is Harry Potter fan fiction. It's like an alternate universe type of thing. It's set around book 6 or 7. It's after Dumbledore's death, and in this AU during the war, Harry Potter dies. It's a Dramione fan fiction, so it's a Draco and Hermione romance pairing. It's also kind of inspired by The Handmaid's Tale, so it gets very dark, very graphic. But this book, after having read it, this is my new Harry Potter canon. Like, I refuse to accept the real Harry Potter ending now. Draco and Hermione are perfection here. I'm obsessed with them. I won't go too much into detail about this because I want to do a more in-depth video about it, and maybe with some other fanfics that I'm trying, but yeah, this one was incredible. It definitely lived up to all the hype that it has. It was my first experience with fanfiction in general, and I guess I just dove right into the deep end with this 1,000-page long book, but it was totally worth it, and I can absolutely see myself rereading this forever. And then I found another Audible freebie novella called Call Me Maybe by Cara Bastone. This one was interesting because it has a whole audio production to it. Like, they did the whole talking through the phone audio thing, keyboard clicking, a lot of background noises. It was very fun to listen to, but I can't say that I actually love the story. It was okay. I give it 3 stars. It's a nice audio to pass the time with. So in this one, the heroine Vera is planning to launch her business online. Her website isn't working though, it's glitching, so she calls her IT company to get it fixed. She gets connected on the call with Cal, who she thinks is just a regular technician. They're on the phone for hours as they're working to fix her website, and even though it starts off very awkwardly, it does eventually turn into some flirting. They exchange numbers, they start texting each other, leaving each other voicemails and such. It's a whole shebang, and it's the start of their romance. But what Vera doesn't know is that Cal isn't just a technician, he's actually the owner of that IT company, so we have a little bit of some secret identity going on in this novella. I mean, it's cute, it's a lighthearted novella, but you're basically just waiting until Vera finds out the truth about Cal. It's a good audio, but the romance just wasn't my favorite. I then read A Thief in the Night by KG Charles, which was a much better Audible Plus freebie. I adored it. I give it 4 stars. It's an historical romance novella, and it was so adorable. It's about a highway robber hero whose next mark is the other hero. They both meet at this inn while Miles is on his way to his estate as the new lord. Toby, our highway robber, he starts talking to Miles and they feel each other out. They realize that they're into each other, so they do hook up. It's a one-night stand, but Toby leaves while Miles is sleeping and he steals Miles's watch and some other goodies to sell. Eventually the money does dry up pretty quickly, so Toby realizes that he needs to find himself a real job, so he finds one at Arvin Hall, but it turns out that his new boss is none other than the guy he stole from. He does feel bad, so he tries to work off like his payment or whatever at the estate. But honestly, it was a super charming read. I had a lot of fun with this romance. I like these two guys a lot. It's such a fun premise, and I kind of wish this one was a bit longer because I definitely would have loved to read more about these characters. And then I read Pause by Kylie Scott. It's been a hot minute since the last time I read Kylie Scott, but I loved her back in the day. I loved her rockstar romances, but this is book 2 in the Larson Brothers series. I remember loving book 1, so I was excited to read about this next brother, and it was great too. I gave it 4 stars. It's about a heroine who wakes up from a coma after a car accident, only to find out that her husband has been cheating on her with her best friend. So Anna is done with that cheater, and she decides to spend time with the guy who saved her life during that crash, Leaf. Leaf is a tattoo artist, and he really was the only one who stood by Anna's side while she was in the coma. When she leaves her husband, he offers her a room to stay in his place so they do become roomies. The romance is like a friends to roomies to lovers kind of romance, and it was just a very heartwarming read. Like, I love to see Anna moving on from her cheating ex. I love to see her and Leaf connect and help each other heal from their traumas. The romance is a little slow burn, not that I minded, but you know, Anna is moving on from her divorce and trying to build a new life for herself. Leaf doesn't want to take advantage of her in that state, but she knows that she wants Leaf in her life. So this one was wonderful. I had a really great time with it. My next read was That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. I read this one for my book club, Ravished by Romance, and it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It's cute and quick, but I can't say that it blew me away or anything. I heard that it was a cozy fantasy romance, and it definitely delivered on that. It's a cute fantasy romance between a human heroine who deals in spices and a demon hero whose life she saves. They go on this grand adventure together to save the other enslaved demons from this terrible goddess. It had a fun concept, and there were some parts that were funny that had me laughing a little bit, but the writing style wasn't my favorite. Like, the dialogue felt very modern. It just had too much slang that would constantly take me out of the story. And then the action adventure part was a little underdeveloped. Like, each fight scene would be maybe 2 seconds long and it would be over in a snap. I do love this new cover for it. I think it's absolutely stunning. But even though there was a lot of good potential for this story, the execution of it just wasn't there for me. And then I did start on some holiday reading in October, because why not? I read Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. I was excited for this one because I loved Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey, and I've been looking forward to a new Christmas romance from her. I ended up liking Wreck the Halls okay. It's like 3.5 stars for me, but it definitely wasn't as good as Window Shopping. This one has such a wacky premise to it. Like, it's a Christmas romance, but it's also got reality TV. Both the main characters have known each other since they were younger, since they were 16, because their moms were in a band together. It was this famous band, but it's since disbanded and their moms now hate each other. But then a producer comes up to Melody and Beat, offering them a ton of money to try to get their moms to reunite their band, and they have to do it all on live TV. Also, yes, the main characters' names are Melody and Beat. Like, you can't get more on the nose than that for a music-related romance. So Melody and Beat reunite on live TV after all these years, and the connection that they had since they were 16 is still going strong. Melody had the biggest crush on Beat back then, and it's never gone away. And since this is Tessa Bailey, the hero does share the same obsession with the heroine. And if you've read any other Tessa Bailey book, you pretty much know how the romance will play out. But it was everything outside of it that was a bit ridiculous here, like the whole live TV thing. There's a lot of crazy adventures that the main characters go on to try to reunite their moms, and I'll admit it was a bit much at times for me. It went very over the top and sometimes not in the best way, but I do love Tessa Bailey, and as ridiculous as this was, it was still pretty entertaining. Her books are always easy and comforting to read for me, so I couldn't not enjoy this one. And then I read 6 very wild monster romances that I talked all about in one of my recent videos, my Halloween themed video, so I won't go too in depth with these. The first one that I read was Slammed by the Minotaur by Sam King, and it's exactly what the title says. It's a Minotaur romance. The heroine is human and in jail, and the hero is a Minotaur and one of the guards there. The second one is Burn for Jack by Aiden Pierce. It's about a 7-foot tall monster with a pumpkin head, and he's also got some vines spreading out of his back. The third one is The Loch Ness Monster by Siggy Shade. And yes, the hero is literally the Loch Ness Monster. The inside of the book is just as ridiculous as this cover is. The 4th Halloween novella that I read was Ours for Halloween by Violet Taylor. This one was a reverse harem romance with 3 demon heroes that are quite demonic. It was also super hot. The 5th one was called Insatiable by Rune Hunt, and this one was really weird. It's got the monster hero where he's got a skull for a head, like a deer skull for a head. And then the last Halloween novella that I read was Unhinged by Vera Valentine. It's that door romance. Like, the hero is a literal door and the heroine has sex with him as a door. So if you want to know my full thoughts on these 6 novellas, go check out my Halloween video. It was truly a wild time reading them. And then my last 2 books in this wrap up are also Audible Plus books. If I get a free trial for something, I am gonna make the most of it, okay? And the nice thing about Audible Plus is that I've been able to try a lot of new to me authors through it. The unfortunate thing is that they're not always winners. I don't think I've really enjoyed a new to me author on Audible Plus until now, with Still Hung Up on You by Liz Maverick. This one was a super cute audio novella. It's got the same kind of production as Call Me Maybe had. The romance here is also phone related, so you can listen to the main characters like they're talking to each other on the phone. It's a second chance romance between high school sweethearts where the hero dumps the heroine. So Hannah doesn't have the best feelings about Ethan right now, but she needs to get in touch with him because she's trying to find a very beloved sweater for her parents' 50th anniversary, and the last place she remembered it being was at Ethan's childhood home. So after 15 years, Hannah calls Ethan out of the blue to try to see if he can help her find that sweater. It was kind of hilarious because Ethan wasn't in town, but he helps her break into his childhood home while they're on the phone together, and it's through all the phone calls, the break-in, that they reconnect and realize that they still have feelings for each other. I gave it 4 stars. It's an adorable second chance rom-com. It's super short. I had a lot of fun with it and it kept me entertained the whole way through. And then my final book of October was The Dream Guy Next Door by Lauren Blakely. Lauren Blakely is all over Audible, so if you have Audible Plus, you will definitely be able to find at least one of her books for free on that catalog. This one was one of many. I don't really know why I decided to read this one, but I did. It's book 5 in a series. I had no idea it was part of a series, but it read fine on its own. I'm giving it 3, maybe 3.5 stars. It was good. Pretty standard for Lauren Blakely and for a rom-com in general. It's a romance between neighbors, and the hero is this British hot single dad. He's a veterinarian, so the narrator has a great accent going on. I mean, it's Shane East, so you know it's good. The heroine is a single mom herself, and she sort of takes it upon herself to become the hero's matchmaker. If you've ever read Lauren Blakely before, you pretty much know how this goes. It's pretty low angst, low drama. The story is easy and simple. It's not going to be anything unique, but it's fun while you're reading it or listening to it. The narrators made it a lot more enjoyable than it was, so I guess I'll give it 3.5 stars. And that was my final book in this wrap up. Those were all the books that I read last month in October. If you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts. A big thank you to Ana Luisa for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget about their holiday sale. You can get up to 35% off their products. I'll leave a link in my description for you to check them out. I'll also be adding links to all the books that I mentioned. Hopefully you enjoyed this wrap up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!